He asks if I transferred the rent every month without fail. So this month, his answer will be over 1,000 separate bank notifications. Example: instead of just dusting the intake grate of the air conditioner, he sprayed it with Windex, then dragged a cloth over the surface. So now we have a mess of dust, now mud, stuck to the grate, and each individual baffle needs to be wiped down. There is also a mess on the carpet beneath the vent where the dusty mud dripped, because gravity. His response is usually, "Some women would be happy that their husband helps, cooks, does the laundry." But it's really just an annoyance, not actually help. We rent out my old house, and today they Venmo'd me the rent. Soon the reminders will start coming from him via text. "Did you transfer the rent to the bank so I can pay the mortgage?" Every month. And I have never not transferred it as soon as I get the notification. So today, I am going to spend the day transferring the rent. $1 at a time. It originally stopped me at around 20 transfers, but in the process of showing a friend at work, when I tried again, it allowed another $1 to go through. So, here we go. I cannot wait for him to start getting the bank notifications when the transfers go through. Bing, 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 bing 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 bing. That's where the original poster left off, but the comment section had a lot to say. Reader U/Krieger81 with 318 upvotes put it bluntly. Sounds like you have a husband who is weaponizing willful incompetence against you, so you stop asking him for help. That is not a good thing. That was U/Krieger81. Another commenter, U/Scenarioing, with 153 upvotes, weighed in. Some women would be happy that their husband helps, cooks, or does the laundry. Well, those women have husbands who are competent, whose help does not cause them more work. End of reply. Then U/WhatUpMyGliplops added this perspective. You can also blow it out with a can of compressed air. I would just ask him straight up. Does it bother you that when you help, it usually makes things harder? Or do you only care that your intentions were good and have no interest at all in the actual results of those intentions? And then just see what he says. Strong words from U/WhatUpMyGliplops. Let me know in the comments which side you're on. Up next. My boss insisted my migraine was COVID, right up until she realized she'd have to clean stalls for the next 10 days. This facility, like almost all places at the time, wouldn't allow employees to come to work if they had COVID, and rightly so. One morning, I woke up with a massive migraine. I got them frequently, even before COVID. I called to take a sick day, and they said, fine, but you'll have to take a COVID test before you can come back. I said, it's not COVID. Migraines aren't even a symptom of it. My boss said, well, we have to be sure. Our policy says either have a negative test or you can't come to work for 10 days. Keep in mind, our work was almost entirely outside in the fresh air. So I said, fine then, I'll take the 10 days. Faced with the possibility of having to clean stalls and feed out hay by herself for nearly 2 weeks, she suddenly discovered a way I could return earlier. As in, the next day, which is when I felt better anyway. She decided not all illnesses were COVID, and sometimes a migraine is just a migraine. She gave me 2 options. I chose one. Then she got upset when I didn't choose the one she wanted. I'd have been perfectly willing to get the test if she just said that, but she threw in the 10 days option. Up next, I made the mistake of telling 3 drunk grandmas I couldn't help them, and one of them slapped me for it. That night was to be the unveiling of the town Christmas tree. This department store also unveiled its Christmas windows that night. It was a big deal locally, and there were a lot of people already gathering and hitting the bars. Cue 3 tipsy 70-something women around 5 feet tall, who walked up and asked me where the department store cafe was. I said I was sorry, but I didn't know. One of them slapped me and said that I shouldn't be working there if I didn't even know where the cafe was. I raised an eyebrow and said, "I don't work here." Up next, a customer asked me if I was a robot because of the one sentence my boss forced me to say at the end of every call. If you don't know what that is, basically, people pay a monthly fee and we cover repairs on appliances and home systems. The calls ranged from totally fine to absolutely miserable, depending on the customer and the day. Our team had a supervisor I will call Brenda. Brenda was very by the book, which is fine, but she had one specific thing that drove everyone insane. She was obsessed with the official call script. Every call had to open and close exactly as written, word for word, no variation, even if the phrasing was awkward or didn't quite fit the situation. A few of us had developed slightly smoother ways of saying the same things that customers actually responded better to. But Brenda kept monitoring calls and flagging anyone who deviated even a little. She pulled me aside twice in 1 week and told me to use the exact script, nothing more, nothing less, or it would go in my review. So I did exactly that. The closing script, written by whoever wrote it back in 2014 apparently, ended with the following: "Is there anything else I can assist you with today regarding your home warranty plan or any of the covered systems or appliances included therein?" And then it got weird. Every single call, word for word. Customers would go quiet for a second because it sounds like a legal document. Some would laugh. One guy asked me if I was a robot. The best part was a call near the end of my 2nd week of full compliance. A customer said, "Did you just say included therein?" And I said, "Yes, sir, that is our official closing." He laughed for a solid 20 seconds and then asked to speak to a manager to compliment me specifically for being the funniest customer service representative he had ever talked to. I transferred him to Brenda. She never mentioned the script to me again after that. That is where the original poster left off, but the comment section had a lot to say. Reader Oi Laura replied with this: "There is English that we write, and there is English we speak, and there are times when those two things are not the same. My favorite example is back in the 80s, I worked for a lady at Intel. At the end of every week, we had to summarize what we did during the week in a report to her. She then took this information, compiled all of her subordinates' reports, and sent it up the ladder. It just so happens that her daughter was my roommate. I heard about this after the fact. Apparently, someone in the group had exclaimed something quite loudly during the course of the week. My boss used the word ejaculated when referring to that verbal outburst. In written English, this is accurate, although not typically used for obvious reasons. She thought she was being erudite. Luckily, and I am not sure how this happened, her daughter saw the report. She worked at the same company but in a different group before she submitted it and had a little chat with her mom about the difference between written and spoken English. Thankfully, she rewrote the report before submitting it. Then my roommate came home and told me about it, and we laughed and laughed. That was 40 years ago, and we still laugh about it. That was Oi Laura. Another commenter, Broken Eye Reborn, weighed in. Could have sprung for systems or appliances included therein, question mark, parenthesis, pause for response, end parenthesis. Short and sweet from Broken Eye Reborn. Then Patrick R.'s ghost added, "Had a similar situation when I worked at the Hut of Pizzas. Each computer screen where orders were entered had a laminated card with the script. The script was as follows: Thank you for calling Pizza Hut. My name is blank. Will this be for carryout or delivery?" That is what was written. What we said was, "Thank you for calling Pizza Hut. This is so-and-so. Will this be for pickup or delivery?" Even our store managers said it like that. They were playing a dangerous game with management. But a couple of times we had the district manager come in and ream us all out for going off script. Technically we were, but the message was the same. Some of us tried explaining how a lot of people confuse carryout with delivery, but he was not having it. He stuck around to make sure we stuck to the script. A few people requested carryout, and as predicted, they called and bitched us out for not delivering their pizzas. I remember one woman said to me, "I asked for carryout because I wanted you to carry it out to me." We just handed the calls over to the district manager, and after an hour of this, he told us to go back to our own version of the script. Just make sure to clearly enunciate, and if they ask for pickup, remind them where we are located on the road. When we got a new store manager, and they tried to enforce the actual script, we had to explain how it does not work, and even the district manager will tell you it is best to deviate. End of reply from Patrick R.'s ghost. Up next. A man refused to pay for 4 ounces of spilled gas, then demanded my company president's address to get me fired. It was part of a chain based out of Ames, Iowa. One night, as it was getting close to closing, a customer who had finished pumping gas came in to pay. He immediately started saying that he wasn't paying for the last gallon of gas because the pump hadn't shut off properly. I looked out and could see a small, maybe 4 to 5 inch diameter puddle of gas, maybe 4 ounces worth. I informed him of all the signs informing the users that they were responsible for what they pumped. He got asinine and asked me what I was going to do about it. He refused to pay the full amount. Without saying a word, I stepped out from behind the counter, walked around the pizza cook, the only other employee there who watched this all happen, and headed for the payphone next to the door. Mr. Asinine asked me what I thought I was doing, and I informed him that I was calling 911 for attempted theft. He told me to get back to the register and he'd pay the full amount, which he did while calling me every name in the book. I didn't respond, which made him even madder, but then things took an even stranger turn. Once the transaction was complete, he pulled a little notebook and pen out of his pocket and gave me a really snide look as he told me, "I want you to get me the president's address, now." Cue malicious compliance. "Yes, sir," I told him. "It's 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. I don't know the zip code offhand, sorry." He is so mad that he doesn't realize what I've given him. He's just scribbling it down as fast as he can. Once he finishes writing it down, he closes his little notepad, pockets it and his pen, and tells me that I'll be hearing from the home office once they receive his letter. As he's walking out the door, I raise my voice and say, "Sir." He stops, turns around and growls back, "What?" I answer as sweetly as I can, "Have a nice night." I could see the vein on his forehead pop up before he turned and stormed across the lot to his car. The pizza cook, who had watched the whole thing, tells me, "Dude, you're cold." "Which part?" I ask him. "Telling him to have a nice night, that was cold." I had to explain to the cook what the address was that I gave Mr. Asinine. He had completely missed it. I've often wondered how far that guy made it before he realized what I had done. Still tickles me over 30 years later. That's where the original poster left off, but the comment section had a lot to say about that address. The top reply, from you, DNS Geek, with 797 upvotes, put it bluntly. Reminds me of the Blues Brothers when they gave the police their address as 1060 West Addison Street, Chicago, Illinois. A classic reference from you, DNS Geek. Another commenter, you, DKing484, with 656 upvotes, weighed in. I was pumping gas one night into an old Suzuki motorcycle I had. It literally had a 1 or 2 gallon tank. About 5 seconds into pumping, gas just starts flowing out the side of the pump where the hose was connected. Pump said I pumped 10 gallons. I go inside and tell the clerk what happens, and she starts berating me for dumping fuel everywhere and wouldn't listen to what I was saying. I told her I wasn't going to pay, and she could call the cops. I'll wait. The police were coming, and the stakes were higher than ever. Officer shows up, talks to her, talks to me, says, here's the deal. I'm going to start filling my cruiser, and if there's no issue, you pay your fuel plus mine. I said, go for it. He starts pumping and fuel just goes everywhere. So instead of listening to me, maybe looking at a video and shutting down one pump. The fire department came and shut down the entire station of 12 pumps, and no one was allowed into the store since they blocked everything. Strong words from you, DKing484. Let me know in the comments which side you're on. Up next, to avoid getting fired, I haven't read a single email from my own CEO in 9 months. No appeals, no excuses. No arguing or appeals. Many of the emails are designed to look like they come from the home office. For example, if our headquarters domain is at homeoffice.com, the phishing email may come from @hornoffice.com. To be the most compliant and ultra-safe, I have been tagging every email from the higher-ups as a phishing attack, even if I know the email to be legitimate. As a result, I have not clicked on or read an email from our CEO in about 9 months. That is where the original poster left off, but the comments section had a lot to say. Reader user, Hot Glue Airstrike, with 343 upvotes, put it bluntly. Our company sends regular phishing test emails, which is fair enough. However, the emails we get, which look most like dodgy emails, are the mandatory training notification emails. These do not contain the name of our company, are in black and white plain text with 0 branding, are written in 17 different languages, and all the text is basically telling us to do this mandatory training by clicking on this link right now. But the corporate logic was about to get even worse. After the 3rd time I reported them as phishing emails, there was a global company email asking us not to report them. Mind you, this is the IT department that is always telling us never to put your email and password into random websites. Yet they have a ticket reporting service that starts as a completely blank page with no branding and nothing saying IT Service Desk. It is just pure blank whiteness, asking you to put your password and email address in. Talk about a facepalm moment. That was user Hot Glue Airstrike. Another commenter, user Skeptically, whose reply earned 330 upvotes, added this. Our cybersecurity training emails used to have all of the hallmarks of phishing attacks. A lot of people legitimately ignored them, and a whole bunch more used their fishiness as an excuse to ignore them. End of reply from user Skeptically. Then user Con Law Hero, with 182 upvotes, described a test that went way too far. We got a phishing test once that came from HR. When I hovered over the group, it popped up with the actual HR people. I even checked the headers, and it was from our servers. It said to click a link because there was an HR issue. Now, being in an office, when HR reaches out unexpectedly, it is never good news. It turned out to be a phishing test. I was livid. I sent an email back and copied every higher up and laid out what I did and how this caused unnecessary stress and was wholly ridiculous. They never pulled that one again. Strong words from user Con Law Hero. Let me know in the comments, would you risk your job to read a memo, or are you reporting everything to IT? Up next. The new safety policy was a great idea until they handed the checklist to the one guy on staff who was a former hydraulic technician. I spent many hours afterwards reminiscing with other former colleagues, laughing about the crap we used to get up to. One of the tales that came up was the following. After a minor incident at another site, Occupational Health and Safety brought in a new policy requiring all staff who were going to use equipment to sign off that they had checked it. Naturally, everyone was very hesitant, as there were no guidelines about what checks needed to be done on any given piece of equipment. So the new policy was postponed, while Occupational Health and Safety composed suitable checklists, that is, Googled for one somebody else had already written. The new checklists were presented to the staff halfway through a Friday shift, and the new policy would be starting the next week. Sunday. Enter yours truly, fresh back from a month off. My supervisor updated me on recent developments, including the new pre-check policy, and presented me with the relevant checklist. 1 page, 35 items to check before starting work. Okay. Now, if I am going to sign a piece of paper that says I have checked something and determined it to be in good order, you had better believe I am going to actually check it. Every bolt and every inch of every hydraulic hose. I had previously worked as a hydraulic technician, so I actually knew what to look for. But that was just the beginning. The first forklift failed after approximately 25 minutes of checking. A hose clamp was missing, not that it was really needed. Lockout tagout applied. Grab another forklift and let's start again. Failed on item number 2. The front park light wasn't working. Finally, after 90 minutes, and with 4 forklifts faulted, we have a winner. I'd love to say the whole building had ground to a halt while waiting for me to finish my pre-start checks, but it hadn't quite. But it did require the shift manager to leave his office and put in some frantic work to catch up. Monday. Somehow word of my efforts had spread through the staff, I cannot imagine how, and everybody was suitably diligent in checking their forklifts over before starting work. Several were faulted, and one area did have to stop work until there was a forklift available. The supervisor was running around asking us when we'd start work, which received variations on the theme of, "When I've finished checking this forklift over," along with a few repeats of those crappy safety slogans management say to sound good but don't really mean. There's always time for safety. Safety is no accident. Safety starts with me, etc. Tuesday. Much the same shenanigans, but this time several areas had to stop work while we completed our pre-start checks. Managers came out of their offices. Shop stewards were summoned. Discussions were had. Wednesday. Our shift started with the announcement that the rollout of the new pre-check regime had been paused while a few teething issues were sorted out. Somehow, management forgot to ever unpause that rollout. That's where the original poster left off, but the comment section had a lot to say. The top reply, from user Bald Harry with 823 upvotes, put it bluntly. That's funny but sad at the same time. They didn't have a dedicated maintenance staff whose job it was to inspect the forklifts on a regular basis. That was user Bald Harry. Another reader, user Chuck the Elf, weighed in. What's horrifying to me is this isn't malicious compliance. This is exactly what should happen. The fact they paused it indefinitely is actually flat out unethical. I understand the part about things that don't count, but holy cow, you absolutely do need to do those. End of reply from user Chuck the Elf. Let me know in the comments if you think the company was in the wrong for pausing the safety checks. Up next. When I went to pick my son up from Sunday school, his teacher just looked at me and said, "Humph, right, him. He is 3, and he already runs laps around me and his father." The best example of this is the ongoing battle he has between the Sunday school teachers and his mighty need to obtain all the stickers in the room. His first Sunday that he'd aged up into the 2s and 3s room was the first time he'd seen a pile of stickers available for the kids to play with. When we went to pick him up, he ran over to the table, grabbed 2 handfuls of sticker packs, and tried to head out. He was told by the teachers that those were church stickers and he had to leave them for other kids, but he could take his bestickered craft paper home. He wasn't thrilled. He tried it again a few times and failed, but he eventually accepted and plotted. Over the next few months, he started layering more and more stickers on the craft paper he was allowed to take home, until he eventually was coming home with nearly a 1/4-inch thick pile of stickers on his paper. Stickers that would then end up on his car seat, the car door, him, and eventually our house. The teachers had tried a number of ways to distract him, apparently, watching videos and playing with him to try to stop his sticker grift. But that wasn't the worst part. This past Christmas, it came to my attention that his class had new rules. There were limits to how many stickers the kids were allowed to use per craft. I didn't say much to my son, as I didn't want to bring attention to it, but he had that look that told me he knew, and he was back to plotting. This last Sunday, I went to pick him up, and when I said his name, the teacher went, "Humph, right, him," and I asked what happened. She explained that he'd been fine, just he had done all of the crafts multiple times by asking different teachers to help him, bringing home at least 2 of each craft option. Because with every craft he did, he could get more stickers. I'm interested to see what the next rule he complies with is, or if the teachers will just give up until he heads to the 4s and 5s room next year. Reddit had a lot to say about this. The top comment, from user Humanity Roos, with 466 upvotes, reads, "My daughter had a friend who, at 4, could out-argue both the teachers and parents. We were sure she'd become a lawyer. Instead, she became a community activist. Clever little things." Another reader, user Bring Cookies, added, "Peak level 3-year-old right there. I've taught 3-year-old preschool. This totally tracks. It is hilarious and frustrating all at the same time. The way they scheme can be downright impressive, but their very self-centered approach to life can be exhausting, though entirely developmentally appropriate. Can't rationalize with a kid who's not old enough to realize other people also have needs and wants. 3-nagers. Oi. Let me know in the comments which side you're on. Up next. I made my boss miss date night by booking him a flight with a 4-hour layover, and all I did was follow company policy. One of them was, always select the least expensive option for flights. Do not book based on convenience. After a particular trip, I picked a flight that was an additional $50 so I could get home earlier on a Friday. The problem was that I was traveling with a coworker who followed the rules, and when we submitted our expenses, I was asked why I took an earlier and more expensive flight instead of spending 3 hours at the airport after our last meeting. I was given a warning. Well, my boss and I had to go to a conference in London. Since we were flying from the US, we decided to piggyback on some client meetings. We left our home airport, spent 2 nights in Amsterdam, and then 5 days in London. My boss would never book his own travel, so I had to do it for him. On the way home, there was a direct flight to our home airport, but it was an extra $250, so I booked a flight that put us through JFK. Instead of landing home around 1 p.m., we landed at 5 p.m. Enter my malicious compliance. I booked the less expensive trip, and we had a 4-hour layover on a Friday afternoon. But that wasn't the worst part. My boss was pissed because he had an hour drive from our airport, so he had to cancel a date night with his wife. He asked why I booked this flight instead of something that got us in earlier, and I explained the policy. Monday morning, we had a chat with HR about using best judgment when it comes to booking. Oh, the kicker was that because of my status with the airline, I got an upgrade on both flights, and was able to stretch out. Boss? Not so much. That's where the original poster left off, but the comments section had a lot to say about this corporate irony. The top reply, from u/illindustry6452, with 530 upvotes, put it bluntly. The boss did not care if the less expensive flight inconvenienced you or other employees. He did care that it inconvenienced him. Having him experience it himself was the only way he would ever change the policy. Great job of malicious compliance. That was a strong point from u/illindustry6452. Another reader, u/coderjoe1, with 369 upvotes, related to the struggle with this story. A tale as old as commercial air travel. I worked for a company that forced us to use a specific travel agency. When my boss scheduled a meeting for our team on the other coast, I simply went along with the travel agent's poor decision-making. My boss was furious that I arrived a day late, so I showed her the policy and how I spent the last 28 hours on 4 connecting flights just to save less than $100 for a direct flight. That was u/coderjoe1 sharing their experience. Then u/throwaway47138 weighed in with some tactical advice for the next HR meeting. I hope that when you explained the policy and when HR told you to use your best judgment, that you mentioned the fact that you'd already received a warning for doing just that. I hope you'd really appreciate them putting in writing exactly what constituted best judgment when it conflicted with the policy, because you didn't want to risk getting written up for violating the policy again. End of reply from u/throwaway47138. Let me know in the comments which side you're on. Up next. This singer wanted a spotlight to look important, so I grabbed a pin spot and aimed it right between her eyes. It's great fun, but often the technician is overlooked by artists. Let's say sending in music 8 hours prior to the event has become a meme at this point. So the setup is built to reflect that. I used to argue with them, but I don't have time for that. The show must go on. So nowadays I just maliciously comply. This time we had a singer. She was like, "You know what would be awesome? A spotlight. That would really make me look important." Okay, sure thing. I grab a pin spot, climb into the truss, and point it at her face. "Ah, geez, that's bright. I can't see anything, my eyes." Yeah, that's a spotlight. How else do you think it creates a spot on a dark background? It has to be bright. Okay, never mind then. Another one was with an artist who was too late, so she missed the sound check. I hate that, because that means standing with a tablet in the audience and live mixing it in. With dynamic microphones, this isn't a big deal. They suppress feedback like a charm. But she had a string instrument. If you point a dynamic mic at that, it picks up only a single string. They're super directional. So I use a condenser mic. But that wasn't the worst part. It picks up everything, including the speakers, so they're really hard to fine-tune as they start beeping and echoing pretty fast. So I had it dialed in live, just near the edge, and it sounded great in the audience. Then the artist went, "I can't hear it well enough. Can you turn up the volume?" No. Then it starts feedbacking. "Just turn it up." Okay. Whee! Turn it down. Okay, whatever you say, miss. And it goes like that every single time. And for some reason, the artists love it, because I listen to their wishes, even if their wishes are not that great. That's where the original poster left off, but the comment section had a lot to say. The top reply, from user Lords of Jupe, with 355 upvotes, put it bluntly. They're receiving an education in the practicalities of a bigger venue through the courtesies provided at a smaller space. That is pretty damn close to a must-have experience for them. Thank you for guiding them back to reality. That was user Lords of Jupe. Let me know in the comments which side you're on.